The alien vessel appeared on the edge of the Sol system like a jagged shard of darkness, its vast, angular hull cutting through space with a predatory grace. To the crew of the human freighter Artemis, it was a moment that would live in nightmares. No distress signals, no warning, just the sudden shimmer of alien energy fields and the cold, unforgiving shadow of a warship that dwarfed any human construction. Commander Elias Kane stood at the observation deck, his eyes narrow, scanning the alien craft's surface. It was unlike anything in human records. Dark, reflective alloys that seemed almost organic, pulsing with a faint bioluminescence. There was an intelligence here, one that exuded arrogance and superiority. "This is not a first contact scenario," Kane said quietly, his voice calm but carrying a weight that demanded attention. "This is an inspection. They've already made up their minds about us." Lieutenant Marla Haas, the ship's communications officer, swallowed hard. "Sir, they just transmitted a visual projection. It's humanoid, I think, but—" Her words faltered as the projection solidified into the bridge's hollow display. A being taller than any human, its skin iridescent like oil on water, eyes gleaming with a predatory intelligence. The alien spoke without a hint of hesitation. Its voice reverberated through the bridge in multiple frequencies, making the air itself feel tense. "Humans, your species has survived far too long for your own good. Today, we shall remind you of your place." A murmur of fear ran through the human crew. Many had trained for combat, but no one had trained for the sheer, unrelenting arrogance of a species that considered them inferior. Kane's jaw tightened, but his posture remained upright, composed. "Understood," he said quietly, eyes locked on the projection. There was no fear, only measured observation. "We are ready to comply, within reason." The alien's lips, or whatever passed for lips, curved into a sneer. "Compliance is irrelevant. You will witness your limitations today. Only your insignificance is certain." The projection flickered, and suddenly the humans found themselves surrounded, not physically, but within a mental construct projected by the alien ship's psychic systems. The Artemis crew felt their consciousness tethered, unable to escape the mental imagery the aliens were feeding them. Towering alien structures, unimaginable technology, and creatures that defied physics all loomed around them. It was a simulated theater of human inadequacy. "Look at them," the alien continued, its voice dripping contempt. "So fragile, so slow, so human." Its eyes, reflected in the hollow display, seemed to bore directly into Kane. "We will measure every weakness, your intelligence, your strength, your ability to survive, and you will fail." Kane's mind raced, not with panic, but with calculation. Fear was a tool for the unprepared. He had faced dangerous situations before, yes, but nothing like this. He quickly assessed the situation. Psychic projections, advanced holography, alien sensors, unknown energy fields. Every element was designed to intimidate, to break the human spirit. Yet he noticed a pattern, subtle, almost imperceptible flaws in the psychic tethering, small lag times between projection and reaction, moments where the alien's control could be exploited. He shared nothing of this with the crew yet. Observation first, analysis, and then leverage. The alien's projection shifted abruptly. Kane and his crew were now standing on what appeared to be a massive metallic platform suspended above a swirling void. Below, faint images of distant planets flashed, spinning helplessly in simulated chaos. The aliens intended to terrify, and it was working on some crew members. Marla's hand trembled slightly as she gripped the railing of the deck, her mind wrestling against the alien's psychic intrusion. "Commander Kane?" whispered Rios, voice barely audible. They can see us. They know our thoughts." Kane's gaze didn't waver. "They perceive patterns, not thoughts. Watch the inconsistencies. His words were calm, almost soothing, but inside his mind was racing. This was a game of observation, and humans were very good at learning games. Then the alien's voice cut through again, louder this time, filled with scorn. "Do you see it, humans? Your weapons, your technology, your so-called strategy, primitive, laughable. You survive by luck, not skill." A subtle murmur ran through the human crew. Kane's eyes flicked toward the weapons locker, where standard human firearms and energy pistols rested. They were useless here, not against the psychic projection, not against the aliens' far superior technology. But Kane noticed something. The aliens were so confident, so arrogant, that they had overlooked the simplest of human traits: adaptability. He turned to his crew, speaking softly but firmly. "Observe, adapt, and memorize. Everything they show us is their strength, but every strength has a weakness." The alien's projection shifted again. A table appeared, alien symbols etched across its surface, glowing faintly. Kane instinctively knew what was coming. The table was a test, a physical, intellectual, and psychological challenge designed to humiliate humans in front of their captors. "Sit," the alien commanded, voice dripping with mockery. "Let us see how insignificant you truly are." Most of the crew hesitated, fear evident. But Kane did not. He walked forward, eyes straight ahead, aura composed, every step measured. The sneer on the alien's face widened. "And what is this?" Kane's voice was steady, almost daring. "An attempt to intimidate me?" The alien tilted its head, clearly amused. "It is an invitation to failure." Kane leaned slightly over the edge of the table, inspecting the glowing alien symbols. His mind was already cataloging patterns, testing sequences, noting repetition. He understood this was not just a physical table, it was a puzzle, a demonstration, a trap. And he smiled just slightly, the first crack in the alien's confident veneer. "Very well," Kane said softly, almost to himself. "Let's see whose intellect truly belongs at the top of the chain." The alien's projection stiffened, sensing defiance it had not anticipated. A ripple of surprise passed over the other crew members. None of them had expected Kane to respond this way. But Kane's eyes didn't waver. Inside, a quiet determination burned brighter than fear. Humans were underestimated, yes, but Kane had never known a species more dangerous when driven by defiance, ingenuity, and survival instinct. And with that, the game began.
The room shifted again. The glowing alien symbols on the table faded, replaced by a series of holographic displays that floated in midair. Each display showed impossible equations, alien geometries, and tactical simulations that bent the mind just to observe. Kane's crew instinctively backed away, overwhelmed by the sensory assault, but Kane himself remained still, scanning each display like a general assessing a battlefield. The alien's voice echoed around the chamber, deep and resonant. "Humans, your first test is intelligence. Solve the patterns before you, or remain forever insignificant." Marla Hayes swallowed hard and whispered to Rios, "I can't even make sense of these shapes. They're wrong. Physics doesn't work like this." Kane did not answer. His mind was working through the patterns methodically. The aliens had designed these displays to intimidate, to make humans feel incapable, but Kane recognized a familiar trait among alien civilizations: overconfidence. Their systems were perfect in theory, yet utterly rigid. They assumed no one would challenge their logic. He leaned over to his crew, speaking quietly, calmly, with authority. "Ignore what seems impossible. Focus on the constants, the repetitions. Every system has rules. Find them, exploit them." Hesitantly, the humans began to study the displays. It was Kane's leadership that steadied them. Where panic could have spread like wildfire, his confidence anchored them. The alien sneered once more. "You presume understanding where none exists. Pathetic." Kane ignored the taunt. Instead, he focused on subtle cues, the slight delays in the holographic updates, the micro-patterns in the alien symbols. He began pointing these out to his team. See this repetition? The sequence always resets after the 5th rotation. They expect random solutions, but they repeat the pattern. Work with it, not against it. Minutes passed, and Kane guided the crew through the first segment. Slowly, methodically, they replicated the sequence in the holograms. Each correct placement triggered a soft green glow, a silent acknowledgement from the alien system. Kane's confidence began to radiate through the crew. The alien's voice, now tinged with irritation, boomed, "Do not presume success. You have barely begun." Then the test escalated. Holographic combat drones materialized in the chamber, their sleek metallic bodies shimmering with energy shields. The aliens had turned the challenge physical. Humans would have to move, react, and strategize in real time to survive. Each drone was faster, stronger, and far more precise than any human could match. Kane's crew instinctively reached for their weapons, but Kane shook his head. "Not yet," he ordered. "Use your minds first. These drones have predictable paths. Observe, learn, then act." The drones moved with terrifying speed, tracing intricate patterns through the chamber. Kane's eyes followed every movement, calculating angles, speeds, and timing. "You think humans will react with brute force," muttered Kane, "but humans adapt." He began directing his team, calling out sequences. Move to the left, then pivot at the second signal. Take advantage of the shadow from that panel. Timing is everything. At first the humans stumbled, nearly colliding with the drones, but Kane's precise instructions allowed them to begin dodging successfully. The alien system, expecting chaos and failure, began registering anomalies in its simulations. Green indicators flickered across the drones, marking successful avoidance. The aliens exchanged glances among themselves, their sneers faltering. One of the senior commanders hissed, "These humans, they are learning too quickly." Kane did not know the aliens were watching, but he didn't need to. His focus was on the task at hand. He began combining the mental puzzle with the physical challenge, teaching the crew to anticipate drone movements based on the patterns in the earlier holograms. Humans, it turned out, were remarkably good at connecting abstract patterns to physical reality. Rios, usually nervous, began shouting commands to the other crew members. "When the drone spins, cover the left flank. Now!" His confidence grew with each successful maneuver. Marla, still shaken, realized she was predicting the drone's paths before they even moved, her analytical mind now fully engaged. The alien observers' amusement waned. What they expected, a panicked, clumsy species, was gone. In its place was precision, coordination, and intelligence that defied their assumptions. Kane watched the flickers of recognition in the alien eyes and allowed himself a small, grim smile. Then came the final phase of the test, a complex, layered challenge combining both mental and physical components. The drones moved in synchronized patterns that mirrored the holographic sequences on the table. To succeed, the humans would have to solve the sequence in real time while evading attacks. Failure would result in immediate termination, the aliens made clear. Kane stepped forward. "Everyone, focus. Divide your attention. Observe, anticipate, act. Don't react emotionally. Think logically, but don't hesitate. Timing is our weapon." The team executed flawlessly. Kane manipulated the sequence with quick gestures, guiding drones into positions that neutralized their attacks while completing the puzzle. It was a dance of intellect and motion that humans had never performed before, but one they excelled at naturally, combining creativity with adaptability. Finally, the last drone paused midair, then deactivated. The holographic sequence completed perfectly, glowing a steady green. Silence filled the chamber for a tense heartbeat. Then the alien projection's sneer faltered. "You survived the first challenge," the alien finally said, its tone grudging respect barely audible beneath the remnants of arrogance. "Unforeseen capability, not expected." Kane remained standing, chest heaving slightly, eyes steady. "Expectations are meant to be surpassed," he said simply. He turned to his crew, pride evident in his gaze. "This is only the beginning. Remember this feeling. Fear is a tool for them, but courage is ours." The alien's eyes narrowed, realizing that these humans were not just clever, they were unpredictable, resilient, and bold.
For the first time, they truly understood why humans were such a threat to any species that underestimated them. And for the humans aboard the Artemis, a seed of confidence had been planted. The aliens may have intended to demonstrate human inferiority, but in their arrogance, they had revealed humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to rise, and to stand when all odds claimed they would fall. The test was over, but the real battle, the one that would define humans' place in the galaxy, was just beginning. The chamber fell silent after the conclusion of the first challenge. The alien projection's sneer had not vanished entirely, but the cold certainty that humans were insignificant had clearly wavered. Kane's crew, still catching their breath, exchanged glances filled with a mix of disbelief and newfound confidence. They had survived the test, and more than that, they had excelled. The alien's eyes, sharp and glimmering, locked on Kane. "Impressive," it said, voice low, almost a hiss. "But survival is meaningless without submission. Sit. Obey. Remember your place, human." Kane's hand hovered near the edge of the table, but he did not sit. He straightened his back, his gaze unwavering. "I don't recognize your authority," he said. The words were quiet, deliberate, carrying more weight than any shout could have. "Your tests, your threats, they don't define us. Humans define themselves by action, by courage, and by will. You may wish to see us as weak, but you're wrong." A ripple passed through the alien audience, audible even in the chamber. Some stepped back, eyes narrowing in disbelief. One of the senior alien commanders, taller than the others, hissed, "Defiance, unexpected, dangerous." The alien projection leaned forward, its voice now layered with both amusement and fury. "You dare defy me? You dare?" Kane interrupted, his voice calm but cutting. "We have always dared. Our species survives by daring. We are adaptable, inventive, relentless. You may command, intimidate, and threaten, but we rise where others fall. That is human nature." A low hum filled the chamber, the alien projection flickering as if momentarily destabilized by Kane's words. This was more than defiance. It was a demonstration of self-determination, a concept the aliens did not understand fully. Their culture depended on dominance, hierarchy, and intimidation. Humans did not obey because they had to. They obeyed because they chose to, or chose not to. Marla Hayes, still trembling slightly from the first test, found her voice. "We're not afraid," she said, her tone gaining strength. "You expect fear, you expect failure, but humans, we rise." The aliens reacted with confusion. They were not accustomed to words spoken with conviction in the face of direct threat. Kane could almost feel their analytical minds struggling to categorize this behavior. Where they expected panic, they found resolve. Where they expected weakness, they found strategy. The alien sneer returned, sharper this time, its form rigid with anger. "Very well, human. If defiance is your choice, then let the next test begin. Your mind alone will not save you now." From the shadows of the chamber, massive mechanisms whirred to life. The floor shifted, and the humans found themselves on a raised platform surrounded by a vast open space that seemed endless. Towering alien constructs emerged, mechanical guardians built with lethal precision, each one designed to crush, burn, or immobilize with frightening efficiency. Kane's heart did not race. Instead, his mind calculated angles, distances, timing. He muttered, "They rely on brute force now, but they underestimate the human advantage, unpredictability." The aliens unleashed the guardians. Metallic limbs extended with blinding speed. Energy fields pulsed, reflecting the faint light of the chamber. The constructs moved with uncanny coordination, their design flawless. And yet Kane noticed patterns. Micro-delays in synchronization, slight variations in movement. Even perfection had its limits. He turned to his crew. "Watch, learn, and act. Do not react blindly. The moment you think, they hesitate. That hesitation is our window. The humans moved as one, dodging and weaving, learning the timing of the construct's attacks. Kane directed them with precise commands, turning what could have been chaos into a coordinated dance. He used the environment, the floating platforms, the shifting shadows, the faint energy flows, to their advantage. The aliens, observing, could hardly comprehend what they saw. Humans, so small and fragile by physical standards, were now dancing around their greatest machines, manipulating their patterns, predicting their attacks, and even turning the constructs against each other in minor collisions. Rios shouted with exhilaration as he ducked under a sweeping mechanical arm. "They can't hit us if we're always one step ahead." Kane nodded, guiding the team. "Exactly. Anticipate, adapt, and improvise. That is how we survive and thrive." The construct's attacks intensified. Energy blades swung, mechanical jaws snapped, and the ground itself shifted in attempts to unbalance the humans. But Kane's crew had learned to trust their instincts and each other. Every movement was synchronized, every action deliberate. The alien projection's voice rose in frustration. "Impossible! This should not be happening! You are not following protocol." Kane took a deep breath. "Protocol only limits those who follow it blindly. Humans write their own rules." Then came the pivotal moment. Kane spotted a pattern in the largest construct's attack cycle, a predictable pause just before the energy core discharged. Timing it perfectly, he led Marla and Rios in a maneuver that allowed them to strike the core with improvised weapons, destabilizing it. The massive machine shuddered and collapsed, sending a shockwave through the chamber. A stunned silence followed. The alien projection flickered violently, clearly taken aback by this outcome. The sneer was gone, replaced by a mixture of irritation and something else. Curiosity, perhaps. Even respect. Kane's crew stood together, breathing heavily but triumphant. The humans had survived not through strength, but through ingenuity, observation, and coordination. They had defied expectation. The alien's voice finally returned, quieter this time, almost begrudgingly. "You are unlike any humans we have observed. Defiance, skill, audacity, unacceptable, yet remarkable." Kane straightened, eyes unwavering. "We are humans. We define our place not by fear of others, but by the courage to stand, the wisdom to act, and the will to survive. Your judgment does not determine our worth." For the first time, the alien seemed unsure. Kane could sense it, through subtle shifts in the projection's posture, the flicker in its eyes. Humans were not merely surviving, they were challenging the very assumptions of alien superiority. The first defiance had been made. The humans had stood when they were meant to kneel, and they had survived.
The aftermath of the first defiance left a tangible tension in the alien chamber. The humans were no longer merely test subjects, they were anomalies, unpredictable and dangerous in the eyes of the aliens. Kane stood at the center of the platform, observing the reactions of the alien command projection. Their sneers had given way to something more cautious, an acknowledgement that humans were not as fragile or foolish as assumed. Kane's mind, however, was already moving forward. He understood the aliens' strength, precision, overwhelming force, and rigid predictability. And he also understood their flaw, inflexibility. Their systems were brilliant, but only when followed perfectly. Any deviation from their assumptions created opportunities. He crouched over a control console that had been left exposed after the collapse of the first construct. Alien symbols glowed faintly beneath his hands. The console was part of the test chamber, a control mechanism for the constructs and the holographic projections. Kane's eyes narrowed. He recognized something subtle but crucial. The system responded to inputs in real time, yet lagged slightly in processing sequences that deviated from its standard protocols. Every system has a delay. Every machine has a rhythm. Learn it, and you control it. He signaled to Marla and Rios to observe. Watch the energy flows. They're predictable, cyclical. If we disrupt one at the right moment, it destabilizes the others. Marla's fingers flew across her datapad. It's like they've built the chamber to be a perfect trap, but they forgot. Humans don't follow perfection. We improvise. Kane nodded. Exactly. Improvisation is our hidden advantage. They expect obedience. They don't account for intuition, creativity, or adaptability. The alien projection spoke again, voice tinged with frustration. Human, your defiance is illogical. Submit or suffer consequences. Kane ignored the threat. He had seen too many consequences come and go without affecting his crew's resolve. He had also seen the subtle vulnerabilities, the gaps in timing, the oversights in synchronization, the moments where the alien operators relied on rigid patterns. Humans thrived in those moments. Rios, map the sequences of the remaining constructs. Marla, identify energy flow points we can manipulate. We're not just surviving, we're preparing to take control. The humans worked with precision, guided by Kane's calm authority. Each discovery was a small victory. A construct's movement could be redirected, a holographic attack delayed, an energy field rerouted. They weren't just defending, they were learning to dominate the chamber. The alien projection watched, a faint ripple of unease passing over its features. Its assumption had been simple. Humans would panic, fail, and reaffirm the alien's superiority. Instead, every move Kane made seemed to anticipate, counter, or exploit the alien's own mechanisms. Kane spotted the first critical vulnerability. The main control node for the constructs was tied to a central energy matrix. It pulsed in predictable bursts. By synchronizing a sequence of maneuvers with those pulses, a human team could temporarily override the control system. "This is it," Kane whispered to himself, "the fulcrum of control." He turned to his crew. "This is our opportunity. If we act together, we can seize the advantage, not by brute force, but by understanding, exploiting, and outthinking them." The alien sensed the subtle shift. Do not interfere," the projection warned, but there was a tremor in the tone, betraying their growing concern. Kane moved decisively. "Observe the rhythm, anticipate the cycles, and act when the energy peaks. That's when the system is most vulnerable." Marla and Rios synchronized their actions with Kane's. They manipulated minor controls, rerouted energy flows, and triggered feedback loops in the constructs. One by one, the mechanical guardians faltered, hesitated, and then froze entirely. The holographic projections wavered as the chamber's systems became increasingly unstable. The alien projection's voice rose in alarm. "Impossible! This should not be happening! Humans, you are interfering with systems beyond your comprehension." Kane stepped forward, calm but commanding. "Systems are only as powerful as the mind that controls them. You've relied on perfection, on predictability, and assumed that humans are incapable of exploiting it. You underestimated adaptability." The alien recoiled slightly, as if struck by an invisible force. Its arrogance, its assumed dominance, had no defense against ingenuity. Kane's crew, emboldened by the success, moved with increasing confidence, applying improvisation to every element of the chamber. Energy shields flickered, constructs malfunctioned, and the previously flawless test environment became chaotic. Rios let out a triumphant shout. "It's working! The controls are responding to us!" Marla's eyes widened in disbelief and exhilaration. We're turning their systems against them." Kane's mind was already anticipating the next phase. "Good, but stay focused. This is still a test. The aliens will escalate. They always do." The projection's voice now trembled with frustration, almost fear. You should not possess this capability. No species ever should." Kane interrupted, calm and unyielding.
We possess it because we think, because we adapt, because we refuse to be constrained by fear or expectation. You may measure strength and precision, but you cannot measure creativity, courage, or the human will to survive. A flicker of hesitation passed through the alien operators. Kane sensed it immediately, the first crack in their confidence. They had never faced a species that challenged their assumptions so directly, so effectively. The humans, sensing the shift, pressed their advantage. Kane led a coordinated series of maneuvers that fully disabled the remaining constructs and stabilized the chamber under human control. The holographic systems that had been meant to intimidate and manipulate now reflected the humans' mastery, bending to their improvisation and intelligence. The alien projection seemed to shrink slightly, its posture rigid, its aura of confidence faltering. Kane stepped to the center of the chamber, standing tall. "You wanted to show us our place," he said, voice echoing with authority. "But it is not your judgment that defines our place. Humanity defines itself through courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to be underestimated." The alien observers seemed uncertain. Their assumptions had been shattered. Kane's crew, once expected to crumble under pressure, now stood united, confident, and in command of the very systems designed to dominate them. And in that moment, Kane realized a fundamental truth. The greatest weapon humans possessed was not strength, not technology, but the mind. Adaptable, unpredictable, relentless, the human mind could turn the most oppressive circumstances into opportunity. The aliens had underestimated them, and humans never forgave underestimation.
The chamber's atmosphere shifted again, but this time it was different. Gone were the subtle tests, the manipulations of holograms and mechanical constructs. The aliens had decided it was time to escalate. The stakes were no longer psychological or intellectual, they were mortal. The platform beneath the humans rose higher, revealing a vast expanse of simulated terrain. Mountains of jagged metal loomed in the distance, rivers of molten energy snaked between them, and the sky was alive with storming plasma currents that crackled ominously. In this new arena, survival would require every ounce of instinct, intelligence, and courage the humans possessed. The alien projection's voice cut through the roar of the simulation. "Humans, you have survived because of anomalies and luck. Now you will face true consequence. Fail, and your species will remain insignificant." Kane stood at the front of the group, his eyes scanning the landscape. The humans were armed with standard-issue weapons, though Kane knew their technology would be tested in ways they had never imagined. He assessed the terrain, the hazards, and most importantly, the enemies. From the molten valleys and storming skies emerged the first wave, alien combat drones, larger and deadlier than any they had faced before. Sleek, jagged, and impossibly fast, these drones carried energy weapons capable of vaporizing steel, and their armor was virtually impenetrable by conventional means. Kane didn't flinch. "Observe first," he instructed. "Do not fire immediately. Learn their patterns. Timing is everything." The humans hesitated, then followed his lead. Each drone moved in complex, synchronized paths, coordinating attacks with terrifying precision. The humans' weapons, while powerful by Earth standards, barely made a dent. Yet Kane noticed subtle delays, tiny pauses before the drones fired or shifted direction. Moments no alien would expect a human to exploit. "Watch the gaps," Kane shouted. "They predict our reaction, but not our creativity. Use it." Marla moved first, dodging a plasma blast that would have incinerated her. She rolled behind a jagged metal outcrop and then fired a carefully aimed shot that caused the nearest drone to miscalculate its movement. It collided with another, sending both spinning into the molten ground below. Rios followed, coordinating with Marla to create a sequence of interference. The humans were no longer simply evading. They were controlling the battlefield by exploiting the aliens' rigid programming. The alien projection hissed in anger. No species should manipulate perfection. Humans, impossible. Kane's mind raced. They needed a plan, not just survival. The drones were numerous, and their numbers would increase. Form teams, Kane instructed. Divide, observe, and control their rhythm. We use intelligence over brute force. The humans split into squads, each assigned to a specific sector. Kane led the central group, moving with precision and guiding others via hand signals and verbal commands. The alien drones swarmed, but Kane's tactics allowed the humans to predict their movements and strike at weak points with precision. The terrain itself became a weapon. Kane directed his team to collapse molten channels onto advancing drones, use jagged metal outcrops to funnel enemies into traps, and time their movements with the plasma storms overhead. The battlefield, designed to be lethal and chaotic, was now bending to human ingenuity. The aliens, watching the simulations, were forced to admit, even to themselves, that their expectations were shattered. Humans were not only surviving, they were adapting the environment, predicting enemy actions, and turning the aliens' own tactics against them. Kane spotted the first opportunity to escalate their advantage. A massive energy conduit pulsed across the battlefield, feeding power to the drones. He gestured to Marla and Rios. If we disrupt that conduit, we can neutralize half their forces at once. Timing must be precise. Marlin nodded, eyes wide but focused. I can synchronize with the energy pulse. One miscalculation and we'll fry ourselves, though. Then we calculate precisely. Humans survive by daring the impossible. They executed the maneuver flawlessly, using a combination of precise shots and improvised energy disruption devices. The conduit overloaded. Drones across the battlefield faltered, energy surges knocking them offline in waves. The humans seized the moment, advancing with confidence and precision, taking control of territory that had been meant to kill them. The alien projection's voice trembled in anger. This should not be. Humans! Impossible! Kane turned to his team. Do not underestimate them. They will escalate further, but we are ready. Adaptability is our strength. Ingenuity is our weapon. Even the humans felt the exhilaration of the moment. They had faced what should have been insurmountable odds, and yet through teamwork, intellect, and courage, they had gained the upper hand. Kane knew, however, that this was only the beginning. The aliens would not allow human defiance to go unchallenged. The next wave arrived, larger constructs, faster drones, and environmental hazards that seemed designed to test the limits of human endurance. Kane observed, calculated, and anticipated. Every move was a chess play. Every decision mattered. Do not panic, he shouted as a massive construct charged through the molten river, energy blades swinging. Use its momentum. Its patterns are predictable if you watch carefully. The humans executed his commands with precision. Using the construct's own energy against it, they forced it into a trap, sending it crashing into the molten valley below. Each victory bolstered their confidence, proving the lesson that Kane had instilled from the beginning. Humans were underestimated because they were unpredictable. The aliens, now visibly shaken, realized that brute force alone could not suppress humans. Kane's leadership, his ability to analyze, adapt, and exploit weaknesses was transforming the humans from prey into a threat. Finally, as the last of the first wave of threats fell, Kane surveyed the battlefield. His crew was exhausted, but alive, standing taller than ever. The aliens' simulations, meant to humiliate and crush, had only highlighted humanity's greatest strengths: courage, intellect, and adaptability. Kane turned to his team, voice steady and commanding. Remember this feeling. They expected fear and submission. We gave them defiance and control. This is who we are. This is what it means to be human. The alien projection's sneer was gone. In its place was recognition. Begrudging, reluctant, but unmistakable. Humans were not insignificant. They were formidable. And in that moment, Kane knew that survival was no longer the goal. Now, humanity was beginning to assert its place among the stars.
The battlefield was still alive with molten rivers and crackling plasma storms, but Kane's mind was already far ahead. The humans had survived wave after wave of the alien tests, using intellect, teamwork, and adaptability to prevail against impossible odds. Yet, Kane knew that survival alone would never fully earn respect. It required dominance, strategy, and exploitation of the enemy's own flaws. He studied the alien constructs and energy systems that still hummed faintly across the simulation. One particular detail caught his eye: the central command matrix of the alien ship, which coordinated the drones, constructs, and environmental hazards, was shielded but not impenetrable. There were subtle energy pulses, microfluctuations, that suggested a vulnerability. Kane had seen it before, in Part 4, but now he had a plan. "We can control them," Kane said, voice low but firm. "Not just survive, but manipulate their own systems. Their arrogance is our weapon." Marla's eyes widened. "You mean turn their tech against them?" "Exactly," Kane replied. "We learned their patterns. Now we exploit them. The constructs obey rules. Their energy flows are predictable. Their defenses rely on rigidity. They can overwhelm in force, but never in adaptability." Rios hesitated. "If we fail, it could fry the entire simulation, or worse." Kane's gaze was steady. "Or it could prove that humans cannot be dismissed, that we're more than a species to underestimate. We calculate, adapt, and act. That is humanity's edge." He studied the alien constructs and energy systems that still hummed faintly across the simulation. One particular detail caught his eye: the central command matrix of the alien ship, which coordinated the drones, constructs, and environmental hazards, was shielded but not impenetrable. There were subtle energy pulses, microfluctuations, that suggested a vulnerability. Kane had seen it before, in Part 4, but now he had a plan. "We can control them," Kane said, voice low but firm. "Not just survive, but manipulate their own systems. Their arrogance is our weapon." Marla's eyes widened. "You mean turn their tech against them?" "Exactly," Kane replied. "We learned their patterns. Now we exploit them. The constructs obey rules. Their energy flows are predictable. Their defenses rely on rigidity. They can overwhelm in force, but never in adaptability." Rios hesitated. "If we fail, it could fry the entire simulation, or worse." Kane's gaze was steady. "Or it could prove that humans cannot be dismissed. There were more than a species to underestimate. We calculate, adapt, and act. That is humanity's edge." He approached the central control console, an intricate panel of alien symbols, glowing conduits and pulsing energy lines. With Marla assisting, Kane began interfacing with it, mapping the energy flows, timing pulses, and decoding the sequences. The aliens had assumed no human could decipher the system in real time. Kane smiled slightly. Assumptions were easy to break. "Rios, guide the team," Kane instructed. "We need to synchronize every movement with the energy peaks. Timing is our weapon." The humans moved with precision. Using their knowledge of the alien construct's weak points and the patterns they had already observed, they initiated a series of coordinated maneuvers. Each step disrupted the energy flows just enough to destabilize the drones, but without triggering catastrophic feedback. The first drones faltered, halting mid-attack as the energy pulses controlling them surged out of sync. Kane's crew pressed the advantage, turning the momentum against the aliens' automated systems.
One by one, drones collided, malfunctioned, or were forced into positions where they could be neutralized. The alien projection's voice rose, strained with disbelief. Impossible. Systems should not respond to humans. Kane ignored the taunt. Instead, he directed the team to the next target, a series of environmental hazards, plasma traps, shifting platforms, and molten rivers designed to crush the humans. Using the central command panel, Kane subtly rerouted energy flows, destabilizing the mechanisms just enough that the traps now moved predictably, allowing the humans to traverse the terrain safely while the alien constructs struggled. The aliens were stunned. Their perfect simulations had been rendered chaotic by human ingenuity. Kane realized that the key was not destroying the systems entirely, but turning them into tools, using the aliens' precision and rigidity against them. "Notice the pattern," Kane said, pointing to a fluctuating energy conduit. "They rely on synchronization. Disrupt one and the others falter. Small adjustments, precise timing, that's all we need." Marla's fingers danced over the console, rerouting energy pulses and creating feedback loops. The constructs, which had once seemed unstoppable, now moved clumsily, colliding into one another or halting in confusion. Rios coordinated with the team on the ground, directing human movements to exploit these weaknesses. The tide was turning. Humans, once the hunted, now controlled the battlefield. The alien projection Sneered had vanished completely, replaced with a frozen, calculating expression. Kane could almost sense their panic, a sensation they had never experienced. Humans were supposed to fail. They were supposed to bend under pressure, not orchestrate victory in the face of impossible odds. Kane's mind raced ahead, planning the final move. The central energy matrix had one remaining vulnerability, a core conduit that fed power to the entire simulation. If they could temporarily seize control of it, the aliens' constructs would be immobilized and the environmental hazards neutralized. "This is it," Kane said, speaking to no one in particular. "The fulcrum of control. Everything depends on precision and timing. We cannot fail." The humans executed the plan with flawless coordination. Kane guided Marla through the interface, Rios directed the team across the platform, and every human member moved in synchronization with the energy pulses. At the exact peak of the final cycle, Kane triggered the conduit, sending a cascading feedback through the system. The result was immediate. The drones froze mid-air, constructs collapsed, and environmental hazards shut down. The simulation, designed to be lethal, now reflected complete human control. The humans had turned the aliens' technology against them, demonstrating dominance through intellect rather than brute force. The alien projection's voice trembled, almost inaudible. "Humans, you should not have achieved this." Kane stepped forward, eyes unwavering. "We achieved it because we adapt, we innovate, and we refuse to be controlled. You sought to humiliate and dominate us, but you revealed your weakness, rigidity. We exploited it. That is human strength." A stunned silence followed. For the first time, the aliens were unsure, their confidence shattered. They had assumed mastery over the humans, yet Kane had demonstrated that ingenuity, courage, and strategy could surpass even the most advanced technology. Rios let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. We did it." Marla smiled, exhaustion and exhilaration mixing in her expression. We're in control." Kane nodded, surveying the chamber. "This is only the beginning. They may escalate further, but now we know something crucial. Humans are not to be underestimated. We do not survive by luck. We survive by thought, by will, by action." The alien projection remained frozen, its arrogance replaced with something closer to recognition. Kane could see it, even if the aliens would never admit it aloud. They now understood that humans were not merely another species to dominate. Humans were a force, unpredictable and dangerous, capable of exploiting weaknesses no alien had anticipated. And in that moment, Kane realized a truth that would guide them for the rest of the ordeal. The humans were no longer at the mercy of the aliens. They had seized the advantage. The aliens would learn, painfully, that humans could not be commanded, intimidated, or broken. Only challenged, and even then, only with the understanding that humans always rose to meet the challenge. The next steps would test them further, but for now, humanity had turned the tables. For the first time, the aliens were not in control. The humans were. And that was a victory far greater than mere survival.
The chamber, once a place of intimidation and trial, had become a theater of human ingenuity. Kane's crew, exhausted but unbroken, stood amidst the remnants of collapsed drones and neutralized environmental hazards. The alien projection, the same being that had sneered at humanity hours ago, now hovered uncertainly, its aura of dominance shattered. Kane surveyed his team. Every member was bruised, battered, and breathing heavily, but their eyes reflected something stronger than fear or exhaustion. They had survived. They had outsmarted. They had conquered the trials designed to humiliate them. The alien voice, still trembling with frustration and disbelief, echoed through the chamber. This is not possible. Humans, you defy every expectation. You manipulate systems beyond your understanding. You survive against forces no species should endure. Why? Kane stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying authority that resonated across the space. Because we adapt. We innovate. We refuse to bow to intimidation. That is what it means to be human. Your rules, your tests, they only work if we follow them blindly. We do not. The alien projection's form flickered, an almost imperceptible sign of hesitation. Kane could feel the aliens' confusion, their unaccustomed uncertainty. They were masters of structure, of dominance, yet humans had turned rigidity into vulnerability, strategy into weaponry, and intimidation into opportunity. Marla approached Kane, her voice tinged with awe. We really did it. They respect us, even if they won't say it. Respect, Kane said quietly, is earned, not demanded, and respect from those who doubted us is the most meaningful of all. Suddenly, the remaining alien constructs, once controlled by the Central Command, began to react. But this time, instead of attacking, they froze, waiting for new commands. Kane realized that aliens were hesitating, unsure how to regain control. Humanity's unexpected victory had forced them to reassess. Kane seized the moment. All units, maintain formation. Show them control without aggression. Demonstrate that humans can master their systems without destruction. Make them understand that we are not reckless, we are precise. The humans moved deliberately, coordinating with near-perfect synchronization. Their actions demonstrated mastery over the technology, yet without malicious intent. It was a subtle but powerful message. Humans were not just survivors, they were strategic, disciplined, and intelligent beyond the expectations of their observers. The alien voice softened, almost reverent, as it observed. Humans, your capability is unlike any we have witnessed. You defy logic, defy expectation, and yet you demonstrate control. You are remarkable. Kane allowed himself a small smile. We are remarkable because we refuse to accept limits imposed by others. That is our nature. The alien projection flickered again, this time not with anger, but with consideration. You as species is beyond what we anticipated. Your defiance, your strategy, your will, it is unprecedented. We will remember this. You have earned a place of consideration in the galaxy. Rios, still catching his breath, let out a low whistle. They're acknowledging it. Kane, we actually did it. They can't deny it. Kane's eyes remained on the alien projection. Acknowledgement is only the beginning. We do not need their approval. We need their recognition, and that we have earned. The alien projection seemed to shrink slightly, a subtle gesture of submission or concession, though it would never admit it aloud. Kane understood the significance. Humans had turned the tables completely. The species that had intended to humiliate them was now forced to reconsider their assumptions. Humanity was no longer a minor player to dominate. It was a force to respect. Then the alien projection spoke, voice steady but tinged with what might have been admiration. "Human, your species is beyond what we anticipated. Your defiance, your strategy, your will, it is unprecedented. We will remember this day. The galaxy will know that humans are not to be underestimated." Kane allowed himself a faint nod of satisfaction. "Let the galaxy remember," he said quietly. "We do not need validation. Our actions speak louder than any words." Rios let out a laugh, relief and exhilaration mingling in his voice. "We actually did it! Kane, we showed them! We survived, and we dominated their tests!" Marla smiled, exhaustion and pride mingling. "We've changed how they see us, how every alien in the galaxy will see us." Kane looked at his team, pride swelling in his chest. They had faced impossible odds, defied expectation, and turned an enemy's strength into a demonstration of human superiority. It was a victory of intellect, courage, and unity. And in that moment, Kane understood a fundamental truth. Humans did not need permission to stand among the stars. Humans earned their place through resilience, ingenuity, and the unyielding refusal to be underestimated. The alien projection stepped back entirely, no longer imposing its dominance. Humanity had claimed its respect, not through submission, not through brute force, but through the demonstration of what made them uniquely formidable. The trials were over. The humans had triumphed, and the galaxy, for the first time, was beginning to see them as they truly were, a species capable of defiance, strategy, and mastery, even in the face of impossible odds. Kane straightened, voice calm but resolute. "Humans stand, we rise, we endure, and no one, no alien, no obstacle, no force will ever define our limits for us." And for the first time, the sneer that had haunted the humans was gone, replaced by the silent acknowledgement of respect. Humanity had shown its place in the universe, not as prey, not as subordinates, but as equals, unpredictable and unstoppable.